Welcome to the Jones Zone, a podcast by Darryl and JJ Jones.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Jones Zone. Today we have Craig Ferris. Craig has been a longtime friend and client of mine. In fact, we've known each other since we were kids. We grew up together in the Glenbrook track in the city of Brea. So, Craig, thank you for coming, first of all. Really appreciate it. Explain to me a little bit about yourself and what makes you the expert that you are.
Thank you, Darryl. I don't know if I'm an expert, but I am experienced is probably a better way to put it. So my wife and I own Expressway Transportation, and we're a multimodal transportation company. That means all modes of transportation that we want to participate in. So our company, Expressway Transportation out of Yorba Linda, we also have warehousing, and in Charlotte, North Carolina, we do as well. And we do general commodity transport, so widgets, athletic equipment, different things, boxes, paper products, all modes, so air freight, ground freight, rail, ocean, international as well. We're a licensed freight forwarder. We are not a household mover. That's a separate license, and we don't venture into that space. But I know enough by multiple moves and transports to where I've learned. I've moved probably 10 times, and as you move each time, you get better at what you do. So that's the history of our company. That's the history of myself.
But how should one organize their belongings efficiently? How's that? Throw that up there and see how far you can hit it.
So my first recommendation is purge some of your stuff. So that way you're not moving everything if you possibly can. Sometimes a move needs to be sudden, and you don't have that opportunity. But I would, we're all, no matter what, a collector of stuff. Some have more than others. And so you need to thin out. You need to look to see what's really important to keep and what you can sell in a garage sale, give away, donate, different things of that nature. Thin your material so that way you make your job easier for yourself.
I often will tell people, and I'll ask for your approval on this or concur, but probably come up with 3 piles. Trash, what you're taking to your move, and what you want to sell. Maybe it's too valuable to throw away. But that'd probably be an appropriate number of stacks of stuff.
Yeah, I would concur with that as to maybe a 4th, which is heirlooms or priceless things that you want to make sure you keep, but somewhere that would fit in there. So exactly, 3 stacks would be really simple. Even things that you think, like I've held on to tools even though I haven't used them for 10 years. And to be honest with you, we've had pretty successful garage sales within Brea, within our previous cities we've lived in, to where it was probably better to get rid of something that I've kept it, held on to it, unless it had a memory of my father's hammer or something like that. Because with the money of the garage sale, if you really needed that tool after 10 years, go get a new one.
Yeah. So what supplies do you need for packing? I mean, obviously there's boxes, tape, bubble wrap, etc. I'm sure I'm missing something. In fact, that's hence the question.
So my success, or my formula to success of moving, has evolved. So first I'd try to go as economic as possible in my move. And I found that that's not actually the best format, at least for me. Now, it all depends on your budget and what you have, because there is a cost to move. But I have found that when you box things up, that you have a tendency, you have this frame of mind that you're going to have to get through your kitchen utensils right away, different things like that. But there's other things that you've put off to the side, and you have well intentions, but they just stay in a stack for probably years. So I have learned, don't go economically. Go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get the heavy-duty boxes. The material you need, bubble wrap, you need paper to wrap fragile things, you need to create buffers. I've even gone periodically to different liquor stores or Total Wines, and I've asked if I could get 1 or 2 boxes that had the individual, what are called carboys, where the bottles sit in and they have a little plastic, or not plastic, a cardboard insert that keeps items from bumping into each other. So I've asked, hey, can I have 1 or 2 boxes, please? And if it's a non-busy time, they'll usually let me take 2. And that's where your sensitive items go into.
Not just bottles.
Not just bottles.
Right, okay,
no, I'm putting glass or something that's fragile or whatever I can. Or I'll slide open a slot if it's too big, and I'll make the slot bigger to put something in. And I try to get one that has an enclosure that I can tape and things of that nature. So the materials are really important to start off correctly. It's kind of like those are the tools of, even though you're not a professional mover, those are the tools of your trade. And if you start with cheap, then you're going to have to then work harder. And everyone's intention of, I'm going to get through all of this, I guarantee you there's some materials that just stack up. And if you go with the more cheap boxes, they're going to crush.
How about labeling boxes? I'm guessing that's somewhat commonsensical, but any insight on that?
Absolutely. So I've developed a strategy that has worked for me because I like to ask family and friends and anybody that I can get a hold of, including I've gone to U-Haul and hired just labor, which they don't know you. But a strategy that works real well is the really large Sharpie pens, wide masking tape, whether it's blue or white or whatever it is, really good tape to seal your boxes. Bottom, I not just cover the center part, I go on both outer edges too. So I'm doing multiple to keep that bottom if I lift up that box.
Additional tape is what you're saying.
Additional tape on the bottom.
How can I ensure the safety of my belongings during a move? Do you have any other tips? That's great advice. Any more tips on that?
Honestly, each scenario of safety of your items is a case-by-case basis. So I couldn't I don't think I can give you advice other than packing properly, using proper materials, things are going to happen. Nicks are going to happen. So for me, I've learned to where I tried my very first move to be perfect and not damage anything. And I think I damaged the most things when I wanted to not do so. When suddenly in my mind that, all right, a nick's going to happen or scrape or a cherished item that's made out of wood and there's a scrape, I'll deal with it later. I'll fix it, or I'll have somebody fix it, or I'll try to sand it down and restain it or redo something, or I'll go to a local glass company and the glass broke.
So what you're saying is realizing that in front ahead of time and acknowledging that. So when it does happen, you don't stress out and ruin what your primary focus is, which is to move.
That's the best recipe.
Give us some pros and cons on hiring a professional, and should one hire a mover, and or when someone should hire a mover opposed to doing it themselves, or vice versa.
There's a great value to hire a moving company with a single individual that just says, or a single mother who has a 5-year-old son, and I need to take care of my children. But the cost can excel very high. It could be $25,000, $30,000, $35,000, $40,000, depending upon the distance and the move and the weight. That's what they determine is weight and size. So it's weight and space. They make determinations of cost. Even local moves. Now, local moves are easier. They're not as costly. They could be a couple $1,000s to have a crew in, and I've done that. I've hired a crew to where I didn't have my network of friends available.
When you say you hired a crew, where did you find that crew?
That's a good question. So there's a couple of things. Since I'm in transportation, little known, unless you're in transportation, there's a government website called Safer Systems, SAFER Systems. And that is every motor carrier, whether it's ICC, which is from one state to another, so federal, interstate movements, they have what's called a DOT number and an MC number. And so you can do your shopping, ask for their registration numbers for both the DOT and the MC, which is motor carrier number. Then you can go to Safer on the website. Anyone can go. You just type in Safer and then you hit the button and then look for motor carrier search. And that can pull up violations, insurance, things of that nature. I would also ask them to provide insurance, okay, whoever you're using, at either on a local basis or an out-of-state basis. They'll provide that if you request it. But this will allow you to have some inside information of what kind of company are you dealing with. There are people that are legitimate and there are people that are illegitimate.
How can one manage the stress of moving and stay organized throughout this entire process? If you can even elaborate a little bit more on that.
So what I've learned, there's preparation. It's kind of like we're not athletes preparing for the World Series or the Super Bowl, but I can imagine that the athletes correct their body well, maybe feed it well ahead of time. The same thing with a move. Pretend like you're an athlete because you're going to do some things that you're going to move some muscle groups that the next day after your move, you're going to be sore because you hadn't utilized those muscle groups. So you need to be an athlete. There's a preparation, and pretend like you're an athlete and you're going to prepare ahead. Sleep is huge. Practice sleeping well 2 or 3 or 4 days ahead. Get better at it. Go to bed a little bit earlier. Things like that. So that way, when it's game day, you're ready.
The companies will come out. There's the services from everything from here are the keys to my house. Could you move me over to here? And then that's it. Obviously a higher expense to, minimal renting a truck.
There are companies out there to where maybe it's just the material things that are your monkey on your back, so to speak. There are people that'll come out and you say, no, this is mine, and you label it, and then they will come and sweep your house and sell it. And then they take part of the proceeds, or I don't know how I haven't used them, so I don't know exactly, but I know that if I had a large number of materials that I didn't want to deal with or couldn't deal with physically or whatever, that there are agencies or companies that can come in and they can reserve these precious items. These are mine. Don't sell them. Everything else, clean up the house and sell it.
The fact of the matter is when you're moving, you've got some work to do. There's just no avoiding it. What about the cost? You mentioned the cost of varying from $2,000, $25,000, but I've even heard quotes even higher than $25,000.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, it will vary to how much stuff you have, but not to mention the fact that even moving out of California, I heard from a few clients, is so much more expensive than moving into California, for example. So I guess that's something, I don't know if there's anything you have to talk about on that topic or...
It fits completely into my realm of transportation that I've been involved with for more than 30 years. There's a known acronym or a known in the transportation world of head haul and back haul, okay? So head haul means that, let's just use a fictitious number. I got 10,000 people all going out of California going to wherever it is. I'm just going to use Texas as an example. I got 10,000 moves a week going to Texas, and I only have 200 trucks coming from Texas to California. So the head haul, which then it's the American way of supply and demand. So I've got a high demand going to Texas from California. Those prices go up because I only have so many trucks, and it's the American way to get
supply and demand.
Versus backhaul. Backhaul, you can find what I like to call a blue light special, because you're getting somebody back to California that can know they can get triple the price out of California, so they'll lower their price to come to California. So that's a backhaul situation.
All right. And then what about pods? What are your thoughts on pods?
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that. So I had a real life experience as to, now the known, and when it was first created, all the carriers were jumping on that, trying to figure out how to do that. Drop a box and someone, let them load it, then come pick up the box and then slide it into their trailer for a half move or whatever it is. And then pods came into the picture, and they do it the same way, except for they put that box, whatever that size is, let's just say it's 20 foot, and they have a truck that has a forklift, drops it wherever you want, drops multiple, picks them up, and puts them on a flatbed truck to move them interstate from one state to another. Same thing for intrastate, California to California. It would go onto a flatbed where then it goes to their local hub. They pull it off and they arrange for delivery. I used competition. Pods is kind of the known. You could drive by and you see a pods container in somebody's driveway, and they're like, oh, they're either using it for storage or they're moving. That's the first thought.
I usually go up and knock on their door. I
Right,
just joke.
right. And what I learned is because of the supply and demand, pods has gotten aggressive in their pricing upwards for their benefit, not for your benefit. In the cost of pods, when it first started, pods was reasonable. Then everybody started exiting California, and it started going up, and then they kept going up. And I got a quote myself personally from California with pods to North Carolina, and it was just under $10,000, which I thought was ridiculous because I thought I was expecting something more on the realm of $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 even. And so then I'm like, what do I need to do? What do I do? So I went to U-Haul to see what they have, and sure enough, they have smaller containers, not quite the size of pods, but they have two. The smallest one didn't fit my need of my move from California to North Carolina. Their larger one was just under the size of pods container, but I was more than 50% savings in cost. There was a value in that.
Right.
What I also liked was that I could drop multiple pods because how do you know how much of your house or what you can fit into the pod? Do you need 2, 3, 4? How do you know that?
Right.
You could start saying, hey, okay, I'm going to do this, and it's going to be a week process. So we'll start with 2, drop them in my driveway, I load them. I didn't choose pods service. I choose U-Haul, and I said, how many can I have dropped? And they said, you could have however many. I said, is there a cost to me if I don't use one? So if I overestimate, so that way I'm not pausing and I'm maximizing my loading. They're like, if you don't use it, as long as there's no material in it, there's no cost to use. So there's no cost to drop 1, 2, or 3 in your driveway. And then if you only use 2, the 1 goes away at 0 cost.
And that's U-Haul.
That's U-Haul.
There are pods.
I
the
don't
same?
know about
Okay.
pods. I think they charge a local drop charge, but I didn't hire them, so I didn't go further in that.
Right. That makes sense. Are there any situations where you would strongly encourage someone, advise them to go ahead and just do pods? I'm guessing, well, I'll let you answer it. I'm sorry.
Depends on how skilled you are in packing the principles of your material. Did you go to the heavy-duty boxes, which I did, which took the riggers, and I used all the boxes. And that's the other thing, I didn't mention. Don't get into multiple size boxes. It's real important. I kind of mentioned it.
When you say boxes, you're talking about the cardboard
Go
boxes.
to
you use
Lowe's or
load,
Home Depot
not
and buy the
pod.
moving
Got it.
boxes. And I just buy heavy-duty small and heavy-duty medium. Those fit real well together to create a base platform or to create something. The other key that I didn't discuss, I know I'm circling back, but when you fill up a box, don't leave 2-inch air gap at the top. Leave your jackets, your winter clothing, your blankets, your pillows, whatever it is, to fill the top to where when you close that flap on the box to seal it up, that you've taken up that gap. Because if you have a 2 or 3-inch gap or a 1-inch gap, over time, if that sits on a box and you go 6 high or 5 high, that's just weight, and that bottom 2 boxes will be compromised and start to crush. But if you've taken that airspace away by utilizing blankets and, fluff material, I just call it, then you've packed properly.
How much flexibility can you do? You talked about how you called U-Haul and then you called pods and we're trying to use them. Give us any tips of negotiating with these moving companies.
Don't hesitate to get multiple bids. Ask for information, ask for their authority, ask for their insurance. When you move, speaking of insurance, they're going to give you a basic, and then if you want things covered, so that basic is usually about 50 cents a pound type of thing, or 60 cents a pound. And if you want full coverage, you need to then be savvy enough saying, I either want it economic and you're fine with whatever basic it is, or no, I want my whole house protected and I want to up the cost, but I want protection of all my items in the house. Because things do happen on the road, an accident, different things like that. So it's a level of protection. It's kind of like renting a Hertz vehicle. And no, my insurance company covers the Hertz vehicle. But if you have an accident, you have to go through your Hertz and then your insurance company. And yes, you're protected, but you have legwork to do. Versus if you pay for the insurance on a household move and something happens, they either fix it or replace it. And the other important part is get every quote in writing and have them write not to exceed. The cost for this movement is not to exceed, because then it becomes a binding contract if you use them.
Wow.
And then shop. Get 3 similar in-state moves if that's what you have, or get 3 similar out-of-state moves if that's what you have, and then play them against each other. Ask, if I pay cash to you, can I drop $500? Cash is king.
Wow. I tell you, this has been one of my favorite shows, because so much valuable information that is almost commonsensical after you think about it, but you don't think about it till after it happens.
Right.
After you're stressed out and all the above. Anybody has any questions, reach out to me, 714-713-4663. And I can hopefully help you out. But Craig, I just want to say thank you so much for coming in and doing this. I know we're here in Australia on this new studio. I'm just kidding. We're not.
Hawaii.
Yeah, Hawaii. But I really appreciate you coming and doing this. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Darryl.
Signing off. Thanks for watching. And please, hey, click that subscribe button. The more viewers that we get, it's easier for us to get this valuable information out to the more people. So again, thank you for watching, and talk to you soon, everybody. Bye-bye.